Welcome to America's Top Represents. May Hashem watch over all the Jewish people, bring all the hostages back today, and give enormous strength to all the IDF soldiers, including Eliezer Raphael Le ben Amuna, Ilya ben Batsheva, Ishai ben Anat, and Ishai ben Chava. Please click on the subscribe button to subscribe to us on the America's Top Represents YouTube page, or click follow to follow us on your podcasting app so that you are the first to know when an inspiring new episode is posted. My name is Vera Kessler. I'm a transformational life coach and an accountability coach. I help women get clarity on their beliefs and values and rediscover who they really are, beyond the people pleasing, the guilt, and the shame, and always putting themselves last. I guide them on their journey as they step into the highest version of themselves and lead a life that is in alignment with their core values. If that sounds good to you, I invite you to book a free discovery call with me. The link to my website is in the show notes below. I am so happy to have on today's show Anat Ishai, otherwise known on social media as the Challah Mom. Anat is a Jewish lifestyle digital content creator and blogger. She shares her Jewish journey through challah, dance, hair wrapping tutorials, Israel, and Jewish wisdom. In courageously showing up as a proud Jewish woman, she hopes to inspire others to unleash their Jewish soul within. That is so beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. Please tell us more about yourself and what you do.
Thanks so much, Vera, for having me. That's a really great introduction to who I am. I came onto the scene really during COVID time. I think most of us were chasing sourdough recipes during COVID because there was a yeast shortage, and I myself tried to get into that trend and failed miserably. And at a time where I think my mental health was declining and I was at home with four kids, I needed to cling on to something that I knew that I could succeed in. And so I decided to regulate my nervous system by making challah. I just decided to go back to the foundations and to the things that I knew were true. And I decided instead of looking at Monday, which felt like Thursday, and Wednesday, which felt like Sunday, I decided to regulate myself and count towards Shabbat. And in doing that, I knew that I had to prepare my challah. And I remember when I started to make challah regularly, my kids were like, okay, you can buy all the other stuff, like cater all the other Shabbat food, but we want your challah. We don't want the store-bought challah. And that was encouraging for me. And I thought if I could share a little bit of that joy in a time where it felt very dark for me, I could inspire other people to maybe get off the sourdough trend for a little bit and join the challah trend. I will say today I am the proud owner of a sourdough starter as well, but I don't want to cheat on my challah. We have both on Shabbat.
Wow,
Since
that's so great.
since you and I are talking, so it's 5 years since I started the Challah Mom account, and a lot has transpired since. I mean, we've been through a pandemic. My husband and I decided in the end of 2022, in the school year starting 2022, to pick up our four children. We were living in Toronto, Canada. I was born in Israel, so was he. We grew up in Canada, but we decided we had this, I had this moment of clarity, which we can speak about. And we decided to come to Israel on 1 year family adventure, which culminated in us returning back to Canada and then picking up 6 weeks later, making Aliyah, which resulted in us making Israel our permanent home 30 days before October 7th.
Wow, the timing, listen, when you move, you never know. When you move anywhere, you never know what's going to be, how it's going to be. But that's amazing. So you were both you and your husband were originally born in Israel, and then somehow you both made your way over to Canada and you grew up there, and then you met and got married in Canada.
Yeah, I mean, I am the traditional story of um, my parents are Russian refugees from Moldova. And they came to Israel in the 70s, right after the Yom Kippur War. They went to the army. They then met, got married, had my brother and I. My mother gave birth to my brother during the first Lebanon War, and I was born the year after. And it was in the height of the first Intifada that my parents decided that they wanted to leave Israel, and they chose Canada. My husband's family, a little bit different, we're Ashkefardic. So my husband's father has roots in Iran,
Oh,
and
wow.
his mother has Polish roots. And and my father-in-law was in the Yom Kippur War in the Sinai Desert as a tank specialist. And so There is a lot of stories in our particular family of the price we pay for living in Israel and the real threat that comes with that. We grew up in the shadows of those stories, but we also grew up not in the shadow, but in the light of what it means to be a Jew and the strength of being a Jew. I personally grew up with the notion of we're guests in Canada, we're comfortable guests. But we're guests and milk it for as much as you can and succeed as immigrant parents, do to their kids, succeed to the highest echelon and try maybe to live out their dreams through you. But that is how I grew up. And so I spent the better part of 35 years in Canada. I went to school from kindergarten all the way to graduating university, got married, had my 4 kids at Mount Sinai.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, it's the typical diaspora Jew story, I would say.
It's so interesting because like I'm so excited to hear your moment of clarity because you're right. Listen, as guests in Canada, I live in New York. I'm from the United States. I do have family
How
in
far?
Toronto. Yes, exactly. Not so far. But Canada also, you have freedom of religion, you have freedom of movement, you can get a job, any job that you want. It's kind of like a free capitalist society, from what I understand.
Yeah.
You know, so what made you? I mean, and you have certain liberties there. What made you decide to move to Israel? Like, what was the moment of clarity? What made you decide, okay, I'm going to go from this lifestyle, from this comfortable lifestyle, to moving to Israel, which, it's hard. It's hard. Life is hard in Israel.
So I'll say this, that I think moments of clarity never just come in one big burst. I think that life is made up of small moments. And if we
Yes,
want to talk about how I ended up in Israel, we have to talk about who I became before I even decided to go to Israel. I come from a really small family. It's just I grew up with my brother, my parents, and my mother's parents. We did not have extended family. And we always grew up that, there's nobody else. There's no community. You have to take care of yourself and you have to be independent because there's nobody to rely on.
right.
And I was independent and I met my husband when I was 15 years old on an NCSY trip when I went to Israel.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and he ended up being the person, obviously, he was my boyfriend that ended up being the person I married. But I grew up in a secular Jewish home. And it was when I was a teenager, I was exposed through NCSY, number one, to my first visit back to Israel. I had never gone with my family to vacation. It was expensive. Has always been expensive to fly 12 hours to the other side of the world. When you don't have family and place to stay, these things become unaffordable, especially to immigrants, working class
Definitely.
families. I did not have the privilege of going to Hebrew day school, so I also didn't have access to the foundations of our Jewish heritage and our Jewish history. My parents certainly gave me everything they possibly could in terms of their Jewish understanding and their identity. And I will say, I really credit my parents for instilling within my brother and I a very strong sense of Jewish identity.
That's so beautiful.
But I think that the rest of it, the heritage, the history, the connection, those were things that I had to investigate for myself. And so I'm in the midst of writing my book, actually. And so I've been diving into these themes or these ideas or these stories, the narrative of my life and connecting the dots. Like, how did I get here? Because it
Hmm.
wasn't just happenstance. So I will say this. Um, I never, coming to Israel was never in my periphery even. I was comfortable in Canada. I would have rathered vacation in Miami.
Right.
I I'm ashamed to say this now, but I had the opportunity for my honeymoon to go visit Israel, but I was like, no, I want to go Greek island hopping, which was wonderful. Um, but it wasn't Israel was like for the bar mitzvah trip. It was for when I had more money, when I could do it comfortably. I wasn't the same person that I am today. And so when I started to grow in my own Jewish journey, which is a whole other conversation, I remember thinking, well, where does Israel fit in all of this? Because while I'm learning about more mitzvot, I also learned about, the over 280 mitzvot we can't do because the Bet HaMikdash, the temple in Jerusalem doesn't exist.
Right.
And if I'm always facing east, then why am I not looking east? Why am I not investigating this further? And it was through COVID, which sort of stopped the world and made us
Completely.
sit in the discomfort and the gaps and the cracks of our own personal life, that I really had an opportunity to investigate, why am I here? What is my path? What what is Hashem trying to tell me? I don't know why big things that affect lots of people happen, because I'm not privy to that wisdom. But when things happen and it affects the Jewish people collectively, like, big things that affect even the world, like COVID did, and most recently October 7th and the wars that we've been in, I understand that there are 15 million answers, because Hashem speaks to us in the way that we could understand. We all have a personal lesson and a personal mission that's unique to us. And I had a moment of clarity, and we could speak about that, that I understood that we had an opportunity to take our family, and all the stars were aligned, so to speak, and we had an opportunity to take our 4 kids and go to Israel on a non-committal love affair. It was going to be an eat, pray, love trip. It was, let's eat the food, let's jump in every body of water, let's climb every mountain like we're in the Sound of Music, let's explore the ancient roads of our ancestors. Let's make the Torah come to life. That was the intention of the 1 year family adventure. It just happened to be that I fell really hard. I wasn't infatuated with Israel. It wasn't a love affair. It was a returning of self.
Wow. Can you tell me a little bit more of that? Like when you said returning to self, like so you felt like Israel was home, or like what do you mean by returning of self?
I think many Jews have this experience, whether they've been born in Israel and they have small memories, or whether they've have traveled here before. And when you step off the plane, it used to be back then on the tarmac, and you put your feet down, Eretz Israel, we would kiss the ground.
Yeah.
But for Jews that have never been here before and they've come for the first time, there is this tingle, this energy inside of your body that you can't quite describe. And the best way to describe it is a soul feeling. It's a connection that many of us, and I wouldn't even say that it's specific to the secular world, because I know many people that don't have Torah in their life, but they're quite connected spiritually. But I will say, for all Jewish people, we have been thirsty. Our
Right.
souls have been thirsty for a long time. And so when you land in Israel, there's this sense of, I'm not the minority. This is my extended family. It's not that Israel belongs to us in some sort of superiority complex. It's that we belong to it. Is that I understood when I started to walk in Israel that I've been here before, because my soul has been here before. I understood that when I walk in the land of Israel, I'm planting seeds for flowers and trees that I may never see, but future generations get to enjoy. That's what I'm talking about. There's a certain sense of returning to the most purest part of yourself, which is your soul, it's your neshama.
Right. Right. That's so beautiful. And it's so true. My son lives in Israel. He made Aliyah. He's now 18. He made Aliyah when he was 17, and he's in the army now. And he has the same feeling. He's always wanted to move to Israel even before he's ever visited there. Like he just had a soul connection from the beginning. And
Yeah.
he made it his mission, and he's there now. And he says the same thing that you're saying. Like it's just I'm connected. Everybody's Jewish. He's like, everybody's Jewish. Okay, I live in New York. There are a lot of Jews in New York. Let's be real.
Sure.
You
And
know?
in Toronto, the same. I lived in the Jewish hub. I lived in the bubble, if you want to call it. It's
Yeah,
not like I didn't have to look hard to find a Jew.
right. No, for sure, for sure. But like for him, like I see in you what I see in him. Like it's just different in Israel. It's just like everybody's Jewish and everybody's not just Jewish, but everybody's family, everybody's community. The person sitting next to you on the bus, the person in the cafe, the person who's just next to you on the street. It's just like all family. And it's difficult to describe to somebody who either never visited Israel or just doesn't understand the feeling. It really is something difficult to describe, but it's just so interesting that you feel so strongly that it really prompted you to uproot your family from Toronto to Israel, but not uproot is the wrong word. It's return home. It's to return home.
Yeah, it's interesting that we talk a lot about Shorashim, roots, and
Right.
we're sitting at a period of time where many, many people have been feeling like the ground beneath them is shifting. And after spending 30, 40, 50, 60 years living in the diaspora and planting roots and establishing a home and a community and maybe, financial wealth and comfort, and all of a sudden, these things that have been happening to us since October 7th, it's unraveling us and it's making many people have conversations that they thought that they would never have. It's reawakened a lot of Jewish trauma, thousands of years of Jewish trauma. And I had this conversation with my daughter most recently in the last couple of weeks where we experienced a really challenging, scary time in Israel where it wasn't that there was this existential threat. We were impacted. There was a real situation here of this could be the end. It felt apocalyptic.
Right.
It felt like it felt very dark and heavy. And my daughter said to me something like, "Why do they want to kill us?" And I felt 3,000 years of Jewish trauma creep in from the bottom of my toes all the way up to my throat, and I almost choked on my words. And something in me, because of who I am and the work that I've been doing on myself and the knowledge that I've gained, is I answered her with 3,000 years of Jewish strength and wisdom. And I said to her, because we are the light.
Right.
We, as a Jewish people, have been forgetting, I think, collectively, our mission. We have been succeeding, and Hashem has been blessing us in the diaspora for a long time.
Yes.
But nothing new is under the sun, as King Solomon once said, and every generation has to deal with the rising of our enemies, and every generation has to rise to that task. COVID, when I was experiencing COVID years, really shook me because I, like many people that have grown up in my generation, we didn't grow up struggling. Like everyone has their challenges, don't get me wrong, but I always had food on the table. My parents worked hard, were honest people. I had a good education. Okay, I did not have a Hebrew school education, but I was not limited in my knowledge. I had access to things. I achieved a certain level of success and autonomy and agency in my corporate career. I had great access to healthcare. I had my children. We were living a good life. We even moved into what was supposed to be the dream home,
Wow.
the big home that we bought and sold our home in February 2020. That's how, you know, Hashem sort of likes to do these things to me right before, like there's always this right before, are you going to do it? And um, and we were going to renovate that house, and I pictured my future grandchildren coming to visit me, and the simchas and the vorts and the future upshurins and brit milas, everything I pictured in this house. This was the house. Where was I going? And when the unraveling came of why is everything being taken away from me, including my freedom to just move, to get out of this house, to just walk outside, to breathe. Why am I so imprisoned in myself?
Right.
And because the systems were breaking down also in society, including in the Jewish system, with paying an exorbitant amount for Hebrew day school. But, you're going on Zoom, and then parents are like, listen, this is not the same education I paid for in class. I get it. You've converted to Zoom where public schools haven't, but you're still paying that. and you're still sacrificing, and people had to pull out of work so other people could go to work. There were so many systems that were breaking down. And I was like, why, Hashem, are you doing this to me? And then that's not a really good Jewish question, which I know because I've learned that. The question is, what am I to learn from this?
Right.
And then I understood the personal answer. And in my life, I've had a lot of whispers that I've ignored. And I understood that was my soul talking to me. And over the course of maturing, becoming a mother, I have listened to that inner voice more and more and more. And I trust it. And I know that Hashem is talking to me through my neshama. And there was a whisper that was growing louder. And eventually it just got too loud to ignore. And that was the conversation with my husband. I said, if everyone's remote, if nobody's coming back to work, then your business is remote. Then it's time to get rid of this, office space, for example. And your children are not thriving in the schools that we thought that they would anymore. They're not excited to go back to this partial in classroom, out of classroom. We have a YOLO opportunity, a once in a lifetime opportunity to take them to the place that they've been learning about in these books. The bar mitzvah trip that never happened, that got canceled. I mean, we have an opportunity to give them and ourselves a gift that will keep on giving. And yes, there were technical components or financial components. There always is. I'm not, but that was the moment of clarity where it's like, my husband and I were sitting down in November at the bay windows, the beautiful bay windows, and it was cold outside as usual in Toronto, and it was gray. And I proposed to him this concept, let's just go for the school year. Let's just lock the house, press pause, and go live an alternative life, for a year.
Wow. Wow.
And the boys at the time were 15 and 12. My daughters were 8 and 5, and everybody was in. And then the rest is, my type A personality, just like I'll take care of the rest.
The details. Yeah.
I'm like, said to my husband, you just have your passport in your bag. I got the rest.
Okay. Wow. So you came for the year and you rented an apartment or you rented a house or where did you
Yeah,
live?
so we knew that I had done the groundwork of like where are good soft landing places for English speakers, and
Right.
so I sort of scoured those communities. I had come a couple months before that on a mission trip with Momentum. I was on that trip, so I extended my stay, and I did the groundwork. I did the research, and Hashem
Mhm.
guided me and to the right people, and we rented a house in a beautiful community. It was, like I knew that it would be comfortable for everybody. My husband needed an office space and the kids needed their own bedrooms, and then the adventure began, just like that.
It's so beautiful. And so you did the year and then after the year you said, "Okay, we're going back to Canada. We're going back home."
Yeah, we made a commitment, right? We told our parents, look, we're going for the year. My
Right.
husband and I are both born there. We're Israelis. The children by default are Israelis as
Right.
well.
Right.
I said, we're going for the year. This is what we're doing. We'll see you in June. We'll see you at the end of June, beginning of July, right?
Mhm.
Um, I remember being at the airport. My oldest son actually stayed for a summer program with NCSY, so he was there a little bit longer. But I remember being at the airport with my three children. My husband was staying in Israel while my son was still on that trip, and I was crying. And my husband's like, "Why are you so emotional?" I said, "Because I don't know when we're coming back."
Right.
There is this feeling when you come to Israel and you have a life soul changing moment and you're at Ben Gurion, and maybe you're excited to go back, to where you live because I don't know, maybe you're sleeping better, you have people waiting for you, you have a job, I know all these things, but there is this moment where like, when am I coming back?
Right. Right.
And that was it was very hard to tether myself away. Like I was tethered, I couldn't break away from that. Like, when am I coming back? Because at that moment we didn't know.
Right.
We didn't know if we were making Aliyah. there were so many other what I would call technical components, not emotional components. We already had like the soft, landing. We were on a pilot trip that wasn't a pilot trip, like there was, but that was a very, very difficult takeoff out of Israel. And we came back to Canada. My kids went to overnight camp. They continue to do the things that kids in the Jewish diaspora world do.
True.
And, and I stayed in this big house with unfulfilled dreams that I had for it. Had to listen to what I wanted to do. I don't know if this has happened to you, but we live in a world where there's a lot of noise and there's
A
a lot
lot.
of chaos,
Yes.
and the phone is on all the time, and we're doom scrolling, and people, good, well-meaning people, give their opinions about what you should do.
Yes.
I had found it really hard to hear my own voice in the quiet of my big, beautiful house with unfulfilled dreams. And I could hear everybody else's opinion. If I do this, what would they say? How would they react? What would be? And all the trauma that wasn't mine, but that I was carrying from past generations.
Yeah.
How am I going to process when, if, and if we don't, what if we don't? What we have missed an opportunity, and in Olam Haba, I'm going to be cringing. Hashem's going to say to me, you missed all that could have been. I was sitting with all of it.
Mm.
I remember sort of breaking down, just like falling on the ground. I've never shared this. I remember just falling in the middle of the house on the floor, and I was just sobbing because it was just a lot. It was a lot to take in, because these are real turning points. I mean, we were responsible for 4 souls, my husband and I. We were about to change, or not change, the trajectory of generations to come, not knowing what was around the corner.
Right.
But with the information that we did have, that we could make it work. We did have the strength, we did have the tenacity, we did have the energy, and we weren't going to take the risk. And it wasn't like Hashem was making it hard for us. If I'm honest with you, Hashem was kind of like, look, Jaffa Gate is open for you, like all the way.
Wow.
It wasn't like you have to squeeze in. You have extra room. You can bring extra luggage this time.
Wow.
And I sat with that for a long time. And we all sit in those kinds of moments. It's not, I'm describing to you the moment of, should I make Aliyah or not? But these are moments, deciding who to marry. Should I have another child? Should I change my career? Should I change where we live?
Right.
These are big, big decisions.
Big decisions. But you know what? I want to give you so much credit. I do give you so much credit for listening to yourself, because you're right. There's a lot of noise. What are your parents going to say? What are your friends going to say? What is the community going to think? Technical details. What's going to be when we get there? What if we can't do this? What if we can't do that? What if our lifestyle is, you're used to one type of lifestyle. Now you're going to go to a different type of lifestyle, and it's very, very different. And I give you so much credit for, first of all, hearing yourself, because a lot of times we block ourselves out. The whispers are there, but we turn it off. We don't even hear it. So I want to give you credit for, number one, hearing the whispers, and number two, for listening to them, for like taking the time to listen to them, for letting them grow a little bit louder, letting the whispers grow into, into a voice, into your voice, and then actually following your voice, and to being true to yourself, being true to who you are. I give you so much credit, because not a lot of people do it. So I really, really want to recognize you for that.
Thank you. I think sometimes people are scared of the dark, and I think dark is where you don't have clarity, and you don't have certainty. You don't know what you want, and darkness is fear.
Right.
But I think there's another side to this, which is people are really scared of their light. They're really scared of what could be. They're scared of reaching their potential. They're scared of, what if everything that I thought was good is really not good? It's really, there's a different version of this. Maybe how I was raised was not, maybe it was supposed to be the foundations that were laid within me, but maybe there's a way that I can feel more evolved and more of who I'm meant to be if I just branched out away from all I've ever known.
Right.
And before I had Torah in my life, I did not have the vocabulary to articulate myself as well as I am today. I
Right.
understand now that the words of Hashem written in our Torah and, of our sages and, the Rabbanim, and that they gave me a language to express the soul language. Because we live in the modern world, 2025. I'm on social media. I'm not, if you're watching me on social media, you know that I'm not living in a bubble, that I don't see what's happening around me. I still have a connection to my family in Toronto, my friends around the world. I honor and bring all of my past to my present, and it informs my future. But now I have this additional layer that I never had. And I remember reading the Parsha Lech Lecha, which is the story of Abraham, and God telling him, it's time to leave the place you were born, the community that you were part of, and your father's home. And I never understood it. I just sort of heard it in a blanket big term. But I remember when I dove deeper into that, I was like, if there was ever a Parsha written that was meant to be for me, it's that Parsha. I had the same sort of awakening during the last couple weeks where, even though I'm Choser B'Tshuva, it's sometimes really hard to dive into these texts in Hebrew, and I'm still going through Ulpan and learning to read Hebrew better. I never really dove into Tehillim. Like, I've always been asked, okay, we're davening for someone's refuah shlema. Can you say these verses of Tehillim? I'm like, yeah, yeah, no problem. I say it and like I move on. Not that I don't say it wholeheartedly, it's just I'd never connected. And I remember having a lot of, like I think a lot of people, anxiety when the Iron Dome would go off. There was a lot of booms. Things happened around me, and nothing would calm me down. And I remember opening up this beautiful book of Tehillim, which I shared on my social media, and I noticed that my heartbeat, like my heart rate, just lowered. And I thought to myself, wow, King David literally lived with the sword in one hand and Hashem in the other hand. And he wrote these beautiful words that still matter. They still impact me today. That's how connected we are. So maybe we are fighting the same old battle, the same old evil, the same old darkness of 3,000 years, but we have the same resources and the same light and the same answer. It's the same answer. And I felt so empowered reading Tehillim. Um, and and I remember the one thing that we started every time we left the mamad, I asked my children to say Mizmor LeToda, which I only really got introduced to and inspired by a secular TV anchor here in Israel who basically said, look, like we can't ignore all the miracles that have been happening. This is very challenging, and we have had fatalities, and there's still people in Gaza, but you can't ignore the miracles that have been happening here. And you can see in the frame, he like picks up a kippah, puts it on his head, and says Mizmor LeToda on national television.
Oh my gosh.
And I had goosebumps, and I was so inspired by him that we started to say it. Um, this is who we are. This is
Right.
our people, we're complicated, we're stiff-necked. Uh, the answers are not all the same. There's 15 million different answers, but they all culminate into one, and it's light and it's connection. And the one thing that I'll say to you is that I always knew I was born in Israel and I had a connection to Israel. I always knew who I belonged to, the nation of Israel, because my parents instilled a strong Jewish identity. But
Wow.
I didn't really know. I understood there's a God and I know that there was Hashem, but I wasn't really introduced to the blueprint for living that he gave us. I didn't have access to Torah. And I think those are like the three foundational pillars of what it is to be a Jew: connecting to Hashem, connecting to the land of Israel, and connecting to Am Yisrael. And all of us are Jewish a la carte. All of us are a little bit weak in certain aspects of those pillars. All of us are trying to figure it out. And for the first time in a long time, Jews in the diaspora are asking themselves, and questioning, like, how connected am I really to Israel? And why is it because I've never been there, all of a sudden I'm yearning for it? And why is it that all these crazy Israelis are trying to get back on a 20-hour tugboat from Cyprus while there's rockets flying back? And October 7th, there was like this, all the, reservists that were touring all the Israelis all over the world trying to get back. Like, what is that about? And the Jews of the diaspora are connected to that as well. You're not, it's not those Israelis.
Right.
Those are your brothers and sisters.
100%.
You,
100%.
just like you guys on the other side of the ocean, are
Yeah.
brothers and sisters. It matters. It hurts. It hurts what's happening in New York. It hurts what's happening in Toronto. It hurts what's happening in Melbourne. Just like it hurts what's happening here. Maybe we have to investigate that a little bit more.
Yes, no, it's for sure. And I love how you bring Torah into it. Like I just love how you do that. And that's why I wanted to ask you, like, your joy for Judaism. Like you're infused with it. Like you can see it, like it's part of you. What is it about Judaism that brings you so much light and so much joy and so much connection and so much hizak strength?
Because I think as a person who's intellectual and has gone through higher levels of education, I never wanted to be stuck in a kindergarten version of what something is. I've been married almost 20 years this summer. I'm not the same married woman that I was in my first year of marriage. If you would have asked me marriage advice at year one, I would have been like, oh, it's so cute. I'll tell you everything there is, as if I really knew. I knew nothing. And now, 20 years in, I have more knowledge. I have more understanding. Things are not perfect. They're complicated. They're challenging. I think Torah also comes into the picture to also challenge you. And this sort of kindergarten version, or I call it bar mitzvah version, which a lot of Jewish kids that go through, especially the Hebrew day school system, they sort of graduate from Judaism at their bar mitzvah.
Mm-hmm.
But just when it gets challenging, just when you need that wisdom to ground you, just when the world is getting more confusing, and you're like, then what is it all about? You have this blueprint that has been sitting there, this manual for living that I thought, okay, that's just like a dusty old book that you pick off the shelf once a year because I was that Rosh Hashanah Jew, just like once, maybe twice a year. I don't know. I can't even remember. And then I was like, no, there's something that you can pick up. Then I thought, oh, once a week, like that's what you do once a week. But no, it's like it's an everyday thing. It's not, it's our inheritance. It's like you're sitting with a chest of gems and diamonds and gold, and you don't even realize it. And what I did realize is that how we are introduced to our inheritance is very important.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so how do you think that we should be introduced to our inheritance?
So I told you before there are 15 million answers to that. Every neshama has been brought down to this earth and placed exactly where they should be for their specific soul mission.
Yes.
I used to ask myself a question like, if I'm growing and if I want to take on more mitzvot, Hashem, why are you making it so difficult for me?
Right.
Like, why are you putting me with parents that are resisting it? Why are you putting me in environments where I can't handle it?
Right.
Like, what are you doing to me? If this is what you want me to do, why so many obstacles? Why? And again, the question that's a superficial kindergarten 5-year-old question. Why? The question I learned that I had to ask, and I learned to ask this question from survivors of the Holocaust, specifically Viktor Frankl. It's not why, but but what am I supposed to do with this? Like, I get to choose my response in this. I'm not a victim to this situation. I have a decision to make. I have power in this choice. And then bring in Torah and it just fits. And so if somebody were to have come to me and shoved it down my throat, I would have resisted it.
Right.
Like if you come to me and tell me what you should be doing, I'll turn around and say, you know, if you want to tell me what to do, like I'm going to bring in my Russian Israeli genes and I'm going to tell you what you should be doing.
Yeah.
We we are a very stiff-necked, stubborn people, but there is a sensitivity inside of us. And when you are learning about who you are and where you come from and how you're supposed to live in this world, it's meant to be done with love. It's meant to be done with patience. It's meant to be explored with favorably judging our fellow Jew. And I don't care what denomination you prescribe to, what kind of Jew you are. We have a problem inside of our own communities where we lack Ahavat Israel. We talk about it like if you're like me,
Right.
Ahavat Israel all the way.
Right.
But if you're not like me, then I resist you. You're not part of this. You know, we're not part of the Shvatim anymore. You're an
Right.
outsider. I sometimes look at it like I have 4 kids. They're all so unique, so different. I'm learning how to be a mother to 4 kids because I grew up in a very small family, as I mentioned to you before. So this is all new to me. This was never modeled for me. None of this that I'm living has been modeled for me. Okay. This is brand new, uncharted territory. And I think to myself, if my kids all got on a WhatsApp group and they did not invite my husband and I to the WhatsApp group, I think I would be quelling a little bit. Like I would, for a second, I'd be like, oh, I kind of wish that I was there too. You know, like we're the Fab Six, right? But I'd be quelling because they're all communicating together. And I wonder sometimes if Hashem is looking down at us and saying, look, yes, I would like to have a relationship with all of my children, but more so, I want all my children to have a relationship with each other.
Yeah.
And that is how I view my connection with Am Yisrael. So maybe I have access to some Jewish wisdom that, you know, a Rebbitzin of a high stature who's very well respected, who gave me the information in a way that's maybe yeshivish a little bit, that has a little bit more, you know, uh, language that could be maybe a little offensive or turn offish to somebody, but then I can distill the, you know, the essence of what she was trying to say
Right.
and talk about the midot that she was trying to, you know, explain. And then I can dance in my video and share this one idea. And I know that that one little spark and another little spark and another little spark is lighting up Jews from around the world where they're starting to investigate it. They're starting to, it is also lighting up our non-Jewish cousins and neighbors from around the world.
Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. The way that I can receive information is not the same way that the other Jew can receive information. Sometimes I can't go to certain classes because I'm not at that level. I can't fully connect and it feels a little distant to me. So
Right.
that's what I mean. There's a sensitivity and there's a sense of um, we have to get better at at loving our fellow Jew and noticing where they're starting and noticing what they can receive. Every vessel is different. If you're just going to pour a whole bunch of water into a decanter and it overflows, uh, like it's everything's wet. Now I'm wet. Now I'm not even thirsty anymore. You know, like
Right.
I'm just wet. You know,
Right.
it's like that. There's a certain sensitivity, and
It's
I'm
so,
really sensitive to it, and I try to be sensitive towards others in the same way.
and it's so beautiful. I love what you say, and I love how you live your connection to Judaism. And I love even more how you don't dim your light. Like you're such a bright light and you're so connected and you're not shy. You're not putting a blanket over your light. You're not trying to dim yourself for anybody else. And you come across so beautifully. I mean, here, of course, but even on social media, you come across so beautifully. Like your light shines bright and it's definite and it's bright and it's there and it's proud to be Jewish. It's proud to live in Israel. And I just want to ask you, like you said, like when you post, whenever you post light, you're going to attract haters. This goes for anything across the
Yeah.
board. How do you feel like when people call you all different kinds of names and like really like the comments get nasty? Like I'm not even going to sugarcoat it. Like the comments get nasty.
Yeah.
Like, how do you feel about that? Like, how does that affect you?
Okay, so it's kind of a 2 or 3 part answer. The first thing is what I used to really dread about the way that I grew up, and what was really challenging was I grew up with Russian Israeli parents who were very direct.
Yes.
They didn't sugarcoat anything. It's like no offense, and then you count 1, 2, 3, and then the offense would come.
Right.
Um, and now I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for that because I have built up like an armory, I suppose. This is not the first time I've been criticized in my life, and it won't be the last time that I've been criticized in my life. And just like everyone has the right to say whatever they want, I also have the right to reject whatever you say to me. I do not have to take that and let that simmer and let that affect and be absorbed into my heart and my soul. So
Right.
that's number one. I discern where these comments are coming from. Number two, I am prepared for the darkness. I think that when there's an explosion of light, I think it's the duality of life. What is it? Breshit, right? The Torah started off with the letter bet, which is the numerical value of 2. It's a duality. Hashem could have started the Torah with, I don't know, I'm not even going to pretend like I would know, but let's say a word with the letter Aleph. No, he started with Breshit. I understand from the beginning, from a very young age, there's a duality in life. When I used to go out on the dance floor as a ballerina, a young budding prima ballerina, and I thought I was all that and a bag of chips, and I was chosen for lead prima donna roles, and I didn't come from wealth. I didn't come, but I was committed and I practiced and I loved to dance. Were there jealous little girls, that were hating or that were wishing that I wouldn't be able to do 3 pirouettes, but I would only land the 2? I already knew that energy of like, here I am, and not everyone's happy for you. Not everyone's happy for your
That's
success.
true. That's true.
So I don't look at it any differently from the haters and the magnitude of the hate that we're getting right now. I mean, I used to post on social media in 2020 when it was the beginning of the social media anti-Israel, anti-Zionism, anti-Jewish hate, which many people did not feel until the explosion of October 7th. But all of us on social media, all Jewish content creators felt,
Yeah.
and we were talking about it and we were trying to bring light to it, to expose it.
Yeah.
So I already understood October 7th is going to hit. I knew what was coming. I even had to make posts on my social media page to let my audience know I'm okay. I'm going to continue posting. But if you can handle it, watch my content and stay off my comments page, right?
Right.
I'm not going to filter. You have to filter yourself.
Right.
You have to practice, self-control. Take the knowledge, take the wisdom, take the light, and walk away and go light somebody else up. And
100%.
then the third part to all of this is that I've been percolating for a long time. I didn't just show up one day on social media. I mean, I showed up one day on social media, but this explosion of followers and this, whatever you call it, influencer fame, which is all nonsense, but the access or the reach that I have, I mean, that's all Hashem. And
100%.
so I'm a vessel. I know I'm very clear about that. I know that I'm a vessel. I'm not a perfect person. I'm a work in progress till the day that I die. I have things to learn. I have more Torah wisdom that I need to develop. I have a lot of things I'm learning about Israel. I have a lot of things that I'm learning about myself. There are layers of myself that have yet to be uncovered because I haven't had those life experiences. And I don't shy away from not knowing, but I will never not shy away from knowing what nation I belong to, where we belong to, and who my creator is. When I stand strong in those 3 pillars of my life, then it doesn't matter what comes my way. I have firm, deep roots. I have faith that has been anchored by something more concrete than just like I'm spiritual. I've had life experiences. Um, I know who I am. And I think when you know who you are, then you take the good with the bad You have good days, you have bad days, you're a human being, but you keep going. And I will always choose life over and over and over again.
It's amazing. It's so beautiful. I love that. I love and admire your strength. And I'm so happy that you're shining your light so you can inspire others and others can see the way you are. And maybe a little spark will get lit in them and they will also be inspired to look deeper into themselves, look deeper into their Judaism and start learning more. I think that's the key. Once you start learning more, you start growing more and then you start wanting more. And then, I mean, that's how the journey begins, you
Yeah.
know?
I also think very much about if I could have just had access to somebody like me 25 years ago,
Right,
and maybe I would have gone there faster. I mean,
right,
everything happens the way that it should. It was meant to. Maybe I slowed some things down. Maybe I escalated some things. Um, but I think very much about my friends and my community members in Toronto who were raised similar to me that didn't choose to live like me. They continued to live in the way that they were raised, and I'm not writing them off because that's like writing me off. You
right.
know, I don't want to be written off because I belong to this nation, and maybe my parents couldn't afford to send me to Hebrew school the way that, you know, many of my friends and colleagues can't also, or maybe they choose not to for certain reasons.
Right.
But you just don't write off a Jew.
Never.
And and I also know that the future, the next generation, I mean, they could potentially be my future daughter-in-laws, son-in-laws. They could be people in my community. They could be, you know, this is our nation. We only have one chance in this generation to make it right. And I know I was raised because my parents, their first act in life was challenging. They're post-war baby boomer kids living in communist Russia. Let's just say I won the lottery by being born in the only democracy in the Middle East and then being raised in a very democratic, open society in Canada.
Yes.
So I can't begin to imagine what they would have had to overcome from being raised 15, 20 years in communist Russia and then to come to Israel and then to come to Canada. And when I look at our fellow Jews who live in the diaspora, okay, you grew up in privilege, or you grew up in comfort, and you grew up without any sort of rocking of the boat. And maybe you grew up on stories of like, I'm third generation American, or I'm third generation Canadian, like my grandparents were not in the Holocaust. And
Right.
so like this is all new, but it's not new to the neshama. That's what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yes.
And so it's new to you and it feels unsettling because I've learned a long time ago that you are a soul and you have a body.
Yes.
So your soul is having a very human experience. And so you're allowed to feel scared and you're allowed to feel confused and you're allowed to feel all these things, but it's a disservice for your Jewish neshama not to investigate it through Jewish wisdom, not through secularism,
Right.
not through, you know, all this social media nonsense, all through, you know, university intellectualism. I'm talking about investigating it through Jewish wisdom. And I pray that people like me and other people that are on what I would call the weapon and the tool called social media, that your neshama navigates it through well enough to get connected and to continue to grow and to tether yourself to other Jewish people that have already found their light, because I do know that my light is never diminished when I share it with others. And I know that we just light each other up more and more. And I see it. It's so palpable. For those of us that can see it, we can feel it, we know its effect. And I was the result of someone kindling my flame. And I know that there are many others that have been impacted by my content and what I've shared. And um, it's very humbling to be in this position.
And so it's so inspiring. Like for us, like on the receiving end of you, it's so inspiring and it's so beautiful. And I just, never stop shining your light. Like really, really never stop shining your light.
Thank you.
We have just a few more minutes. And I want to ask you this one question because, we were talking about in the beginning about, you started your journey on social media by making challah. And I know that you have some beautiful videos on hair wrapping. Your
Yeah.
scarves are so gorgeous, including the one that you're wearing today, and, very vibrant and colorful and full of life. And, thank you, first of all, for demonstrating how to hair wrap. Like, I personally can never seem to wrap a scarf properly. Like, when I do it, honestly, I look like an art project gone wrong. Like, I just can't. I really can't.
Fair enough.
So, I'm wondering if you can please share with us why you chose to cover your hair specifically with scarves. Like, do scarves have a special significance for you?
I'll tell you that when I first started wrapping my hair, it was the cheapest option. Like I wanted to cover my hair on Shabbat, and I always grew up with a mother who took a scarf and put it on Friday night and lit the candles. So I think many of us grew up with sort of that image.
Uh-huh.
Of just like put a scarf on, and if your mother was not observant, lighting Shabbat candles. And I remember when I started to want to cover my hair, I did it only on Shabbat, and I did it for like 3 or 4 years, just covering my hair on Shabbat. And I called it my J-Lo glow. It was literally hoop earrings, and my hair was very long, and I put it in a bun, and I remember J-Lo, Jennifer Lopez, for those of you who are unfamiliar, basically like a Gucci or a Fendi scarf or Louis Vuitton scarf, and she was poolside in her bikini or whatever, but she had this beautiful scarf wrap situation going. And I'm like, I could totally pull that off. And that's how I'd go to shul. And then people, including my mother, would give me her scarves. And that's how I did it for a long time. Living in the diaspora, when I wanted to start to cover my hair full time, I did buy a wig. And I
Okay.
wore the wig for the very first time for my son's bar mitzvah, when nobody knew except my Rebbetzin and my husband,
Wow.
because it was exactly the same texture, color, length. Nobody knew, but I knew. And then I knew that and that wrapping journey or hair covering journey grew over time. Every year I would take on a little bit more. Like I'm going to cover on Shabbat and Chagim. Now I'm going to cover on Shabbat and Chagim. Every day I'm just going to cover the crown of my head. Or just if I don't do that, I'm going to wear a hat. And then when I start to cover full time, I live in Canada, which means we have 2 seasons, winter and construction. So during the winter time, I just wore a beanie, like 80% of the time. And then the other times I would wear a wig, or in my Jewish community, my bubble, I would start rapping. And when I came to Israel for that 1 year family adventure, I took on hair covering full time. And it was really through the inspiring women of Jerusalem. When you come to Jerusalem, you see so many different variations of
Yes.
hair wrapping,
Yes.
and like Jewish goddesses just like walking around Jerusalem in all their glory and beauty. And from there, I picked it up, and now I just share it. And thank God it's sort of become a signature look.
It's amazing. It's so beautiful, and I'm so glad that you shared because it's really, really, really helpful. Like, I have to sit there and start watching your tutorials because I also have scarves, but like I said, like I just look like paper mache gone wrong. Like, it
But there
really.
is one accessory that you do need, which is this Bobo velvet headband underneath. That's what gives it a little bit of the height, which I do share in my videos. I show myself putting that on before wrapping. So
It's a good tip.
it's a one little thing. Everyone has a velvet wig grip,
Yes,
right?
yes,
Right.
yes.
So this is the velvet Bobo. It's like a raised headband that you put on, and that's what grips and holds the hairpiece and gives it a little bit of this height that you see.
I
Oops.
love it. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us on America's Top Rebbetzins. It was so much fun, such a pleasure to have you here with us. And may Hashem watch over all the Jewish people, bring all the hostages back today, and give strength to all the IDF soldiers, including Eliezer Raphael ben Emuna, Ilya ben Batsheva, Ishai ben Anat, and Ishai ben Chava. Thank you so much again.
Thank you.